Hi, I'm Kate. I'm an ultra runner and a running coach, and here on this channel I talk all things about running, so welcome. Today I want to start a series of short videos where I would explain some basic things and give answers to questions that I most commonly get asked as a coach. Just got back from my short trip to Tenerife. It was pretty much warm there, despite the fact that it's February. I went running. I ran a trail on the famous volcano there, Teide, I think it is, or Teide, that's what it's called, I think. And I actually only took a 500 ml, soft flask with me. And actually I knew that that's not going to be enough fluid for quite a long trail run. I did something like 20 plus K with quite a lot of elevation, up to 2,000 meters elevation. So it did take me a while, and it was warm. It's plus 23 there around that temperature, even high up on the volcano. So I actually knew that I would not have enough water, but I didn't really have any choice. But that made me think I should definitely talk about hydration strategies and why, and how much water you should drink during exercises. Well, actually, there are two approaches to that. Both approaches definitely say that you should be drinking water while you exercise, but the difference between them is that one approach tells you that you should only drink when you get thirsty, and that you should really listen to your body carefully and understand how much you need to drink and don't have to count anything. The other approach says that there are certain criteria, certain recommendations on how much water you should drink, depending on the length and intensity of your exercises. But first, let's dive into why you actually have to drink while you exercise. Well, I think you've all heard a term, dehydration. We know that it is bad. That means that we are not ingesting enough fluid, so we use more fluid than we're ingesting. Of course, during exercise, we sweat. We usually breathe with our mouth, which makes us evaporate even more liquid, more water, and that means we lose water faster than during our, day-to-day usual life. If we get dehydrated, we first of all would feel overheated. This can actually lead to a heat stroke, which is a bad consequence of dehydration. Depending on the severity of dehydration, it can be felt just as that your perception of the exercise load increases, so you feel more tired, you feel fatigued. Generally speaking, if you understand that you're dehydrated, well, let's say not during the race, but generally the way to understand to what extent you're dehydrated, you can judge that by how often you want to go to the toilet. You can look at the color of your urine, and the darker it is, the more dehydrated you are. There are some charts, you can find them on the web, that sort of correlate the percentage of dehydration to the color of the urine. But probably during the exercises or during the race, you definitely will not be able to do that. So how much liquid should you take during training and during races? Well, first of all, there is such a thing as sweat rate. So you can actually determine your sweat rate by doing a very easy test. So what you do is you weigh yourself before you go, let's say, on a run. Then you run for 60 minutes. If you take any fluid, please make sure that you notice how much fluid you've taken. You take a note of that, you remember how much fluid you've taken. Then when you come back, you weigh yourself again, and what you do next is you subtract the weight after the training from the weight before the training, and to it you add any fluid that you've taken. So usually we can say that water, a milliliter of water weighs roughly 1 gram, so we weigh ourselves in grams, and then we can say that usually people lose something. The sweat rate can be somewhere in between 500 grams to 500 ml to 1 liter 200 ml, but usually like the go-to recommendation of how much you have to drink is about 450-500 ml per hour. Now, what's important? People often think that dehydration apparently is caused by not taking enough fluid, and they start drinking excessively much. So they think that the more they drink, the better, but in reality, that's not always the case. So there are a couple of things to consider. Well, first of all, when you drink too much, but do not take electrolytes and do not add sodium, natrium, etc. to your drink, what happens is that your electrolytes that are already in your body, well, basically the salts, can be sort of flushed out because you drink, you sweat, you maybe go to the toilet, you breathe, all that makes you lose fluid and the salts and the electrolytes. Well, the thing is that electrolytes are used by our body to transmit signals from brain to, well, basically all the other organs. And it's incredibly important to have a sufficient levels of them, because if they run short of electrolytes, you run low on electrolytes, that can actually lead to really severe symptoms. This condition is called hyponatremia, and well, it can start with a headache, with cramps, it can start with bloating, nausea, vomiting, but then eventually can lead to even sort of hallucinations and eventually coma or even death. And in this condition, an athlete should be taken straight to a hospital, to some medical facility where they can get proper medical assistance. So the thing is that you can either take too little electrolytes or too much water. So drinking too much water isn't good either. So generally speaking, at the beginning of the video, I've mentioned that there are two approaches. You can drink when you feel thirsty, or you can drink a certain amount of water that you think is sufficient for you to stay hydrated. So the takeouts would be, the thing is that with being thirsty, it's a good way to measure how much you need to drink, but when you're in a race or even when you're training, you might not be able to focus on your thirst and focus on how you feel and understand that as clearly as when you're just living your day-to-day life. Therefore, I personally think it's better to actually have a certain idea of how much, sort of a range of how much you should be drinking during a bout of exercises or during a race. So as I've said before, so the takeout from this would be drink roughly, I would say 500 ml during an hour of exercise. Also keep in mind that if it's extra hot outside, you're running in a hotter climate, or you're doing training or a race in altitude, you may need more water, so you may need to drink more. I'd say if you're going for a run and your training would be up to 1 hour and it's not extra hot outside, it's fine to run without water, and then make sure you drink before you run. Well, not immediately before you run, but let's say 10, 15, 20 minutes before you run, or right after. So you come back, you've done your 1 hour exercise, you drink at least 500 ml of water, maybe a little bit more. But you can also, some people sweat excessively. As I said, you can do a test and determine your sweat rate as well. You might need to drink a little more to replenish all the water that you lost. Rule number 2, do take electrolytes. It's much safer to take electrolytes than not to take them before exercise, after exercise, during exercise, or a race, but I'll make a separate video particularly on electrolytes and dive into that deeper. Rule number 3, I would say if you are going for a run which would last longer than 60 minutes, take water with you. Make sure you drink in little sips. I'd say maybe 2 or 3 sips every 10 minutes, or I don't know, every mile. You can think of all those schemes. You can make up the scheme in your head, whichever fits best for you, but make sure you don't sort of, drink the whole the whole bottle at once, because it's not going to be comfortable to run and it's not going to work as well. So better just drink that continuously during your running. Make sure you take enough water with you. So hope you find this video helpful. More videos on basics of running will come, and please hit the subscribe button. This will help me immensely, and hope you have nice training, and hope more people can learn running basics and all things about running. Have a nice day. Bye bye.